All right, we are back. Another episode of the Adversity Podcast. Real people, real stories. And we got Josh in the building. What's up, man?
What's going on, Mambo? How you doing?
Doing good. A little busy at work, but it's all good. Can't complain, man.
Man, I know you're always busy. You just grind. I don't know if I know anybody that grinds as much as you do.
I need to grind somewhere they pay good, bro. That's what I need to do because I feel like I'm always working.
I think you need a vacation.
Yeah, I'd probably be working on vacation. That's the problem, man.
That's 100% accurate.
Yeah, but we're back for another episode and always coming through with the dope guests. Who do we have this week?
We have Miss Alicia Franco. She is the co-owner of Colosseum Bootcamp, which is where I get my workout in, kind of my sanctuary. Her and her husband have become dear friends to my wife and I, and we're just very fortunate that we have her. She's an amazing human being. She is a professional bodybuilder now. She has gotten her IFFB card, right? Is that
not yet.
Okay.
But I'm okay with manifesting that.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So kind of introduce yourself, Alicia.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's nice. It's awesome to be here. So thank you for having me. Like Josh was saying, me and my husband own a gym here called Colosseum Bootcamp, where we specialize in transforming people, whether that's trying to put on muscle or trying to decrease fat, and then obviously cater to anybody that wants to come in and train 24 hours. So it's been quite a ride because we opened up during the pandemic, but every single second of it has been awesome because we've met people like Josh and your wife, and so I'm kind of grateful for the pandemic, actually.
Nice. And where did you grow up at?
I actually was born and raised in Moore Park, California, so about 20 minutes away from here.
Yeah.
And then grew up and then met my husband when I was 23. We moved out to the Valley, hated every second of that, and then finally migrated to Oxnard, which I always had love in my heart for Oxnard. I came out here a lot in my teens, getting in troubles and stuff, but always loved Oxnard. So I find it no coincidence that we found our roots here. So, yeah. And
when did working out become a thing for you?
Oh, gosh. So I actually battled with an eating disorder since I would say about 14. So I was bulimic and anorexic for about 10 years. Went to treatment after treatment. Nothing helped. And then coincidentally, when I found bodybuilding, that's when things started to change for me.
Right.
And I started to realize the only way to get what I want to look like was to feed my body. And it fed me in so many other ways as well. So that's where it started.
How long before you realized, like, there's a problem here?
That I had an eating disorder?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew right off the bat. Like, I grew up in the early 2000s where, like, Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie, Lindsay Lohan, all those girls. That's
what you've seen all the time, yeah.
Yeah, just the skinny look. And I equated that as beautiful. In my head, a lot of girls did, and I kind of, unfortunately, it took a wrong turn, and it became an obsession. And by the time I was 15, 16, I mean, I was purging everything up. I have scar marks on my hands from when I would put my finger down my throat. So it's a good little reminder of where I came from and where I never want to go, and then just what I've been able to accomplish from that. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many people out there I think that can relate to that, you know. I mean, that's for even guys, you know, for guys that we see these guys that are, you know, built like brick shit houses, you know, walking around that are all shredded and cut up, and you don't realize the diet that goes into that, you know, is so strict and so intense. And, you know, and you think, I know a lot of guys that think they can go in the gym for a couple of weeks and then they're just going to look like that. And it takes years.
Yeah.
It takes years.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about being in the workout community of Colosseum Bootcamp is there's some really authentic human beings that work out in there. And it's also their sanctuary, right? So there's this really neat community of people, and we all love supporting John and Alicia, because even John, you know, he competes and he's over 50 years old, right? It's really, really impressive to see what these guys do and the discipline. And I think the best thing that our listeners can get from just the first 5 seconds of Alicia's story is that when you're in a place that you don't think there's any hope, and there's a place where you don't think you can get out, it's a feeling of drowning.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There is a way to get out.
Yeah.
And you just got to find what it is that's important to you that wakes you up and gets you going.
Right.
You know, maybe not everybody it's working out, even though the both of us are going to say that's probably one of the most beneficial things you can do. And you don't have to be in the gym grunting, lifting big heavy weight and squatting, all that crazy stuff. You can be in there just doing lightweight, you know, doing cardio, just doing some functional things that get your body
exercising
rolling.
out those demons. As I like to say. But I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of men go through the same thing, and I don't think we talk about it enough. But bodybuilding actually wasn't exactly what saved me. It was because I was still battling with it when I was like 19 and 20. And I remember my mom looking at me, and she goes, you know, what's it going to take for you to stop? Is it going to take you being 6 feet under? Because, I mean, I got down to like 79, 80 pounds. I was a tiny little thing. I'm 5 feet. For 11 and a half, but that's nothing, man. That was tiny. So I remember looking at her and saying, probably if I get pregnant. And I kid you not, within 3 months, I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And I remember thinking, okay. I get chills when I think about it because it literally, God was listening. Right. And he goes, I'm going to throw this at you and see if you truly mean that in what you say. And I was also a smoker, so I was smoking cigarettes. Everything had to stop right then and there. And if you know that struggle and you come from that background, that is a very hard thing to do because you're not taking anything to alter your state of mind and thinking this way.
Right.
You already think that way. So it's not like I can just stop taking these drugs and I'm going to be okay. I had to literally work on my mind while carrying a human being and being okay with putting weight on. And needless to say, I gained 75 pounds during pregnancy because now it was the most liberating time of my life because I was able to finally eat and I had to keep it down for my kid. Mm-hmm. So Nikolai is my first one, and he doesn't exactly know what a godsend he really was. He will one day, and I'll explain it all to him. But he is definitely my saving grace. And then bodybuilding kind of became more of a thing for me.
So when you were going through that, were people telling you like your mom, when are you going to get help?
Yeah.
And during that point, did you ever tell yourself like I could stop when I want?
You know, it's funny that you say that because my dad tried bribing me. He tried giving me like $10,000 in order to stop. Yeah, I mean, bulimia is a disgusting. It's not, I don't want to say disgusting, but you're just not yourself when, whether you're an addict or whether you're going through any sort of recovery. And I would puke in like these little bags and leave them in my room, and I just wouldn't throw them out. And my dad would find them and be like, you know, what are you doing? Like, can't you just fix yourself? Like, and I was 18 at this point, and he's like, look, I'll give you $10,000 if you just stop. And I go, if I can do that, I certainly would love to take your money and, you know, buy whatever I want.
Right.
But I looked him in the eyes and I go, I can't. And then they entered me into a treatment facility, which was, they did it out with good intentions, but bad things happened out of it. Because sometimes when you put a lot of girls with the same issue in a room, it becomes a competition.
So you learn more of how to get away with it.
It's kind of, unfortunately to say this, you know, addicts that go to any sort of group meetings, sometimes you meet the wrong people at that time. And that's what happened to me. So my eating disorder actually got worse in treatment. And it wasn't until I got out that I got a little bit better. But during that time, what I did not know is I was still taking those tools that I was learning during that time, and I applied them later on in my life. So it did help in some sort of way, but during that time, it didn't.
Yeah, I feel I have friends who have gone to prison, and then they end up going to federal prison, and they learn how to become better criminals in federal prison.
Yeah.
Same with friends that have gone DUIs.
Yeah.
It's like they find new drinking buddies at the meetings, and it's not until that person wants to change where they apply what they learn.
Exactly. Yeah. And I met a lot of great girls in that treatment facility. A couple of them did pass away, and then a few of them to see them where they are now with families and kids and just much healthier and thriving in life. It's just a beautiful thing. So like you were saying during that time, it's like, man, like I'm not going to get out of this. And you feel like you're drowning. And that's what depression feels like too. Cause I struggle with that, and anxiety daily. And it's like the best way I can describe it is you're just trying to swim up for air. And it's like something just pulls you right back down. Right. And you're like even further down than when you started.
And I think getting knowledge in whatever it is that you want to do. Like I know there was a time where I wanted to lose weight. And I thought starving myself was going to be the thing to do.
Yeah.
But when I met with a nutritionist, I actually had to eat more
to lose.
Yeah,
right?
to lose, and I was like, it don't make sense.
Yeah.
But once you get the knowledge, it's almost like, wow, I should have been. This is easy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like I have to eat in order to lose weight. Like, yeah, it's that simple. I remember when I was when your wife was training with me, and I'm like, hey, great news. Like, you don't have to starve yourself. Like, you can actually eat your food and enjoy it. And she's like, what? I don't need to eat in moderate. And like, no, like as long as you're eating healthy amount of food and you're not overdoing it, like your body will respond.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the majority of girls I have in my office that come to me for help, they're not overeating or they're not splurging or binging. It's that they're starving themselves, and the body just gets used to it. And what it does out of to defend itself and to protect itself is that each time that you do feed it, it holds on to it and stores it as fat. Yeah. So it doesn't go into starvation.
Yeah.
So body's a machine. Just feed it, and it'll definitely do what it's supposed to do.
So, how much did the gym life help you with what you went through?
So much. That's why I'm so grateful for the gym and bodybuilding. And I actually just spoke about this not too long ago because, a lot of people think of bodybuilding and they think it's all about aesthetics, or they think it's just superficial, and it's really not like that. That, for me and for most people, it's just where you're able to go be alone in your own sanctuary, whether that's in your head or, people that you know, and that you can kind of just, it's your therapy. Right. So it's been my therapy.
Yeah, it's 100% accurate. I get in there and it's my time for me for prayer. Like I like to listen to this. A lot of people are listening to crazy music or whatever. And I started listening to worship music about 5 or 6 years ago in Texas, because like Lisa talked about, and we'll even get into this a little bit more, I started realizing I was struggling with anxiety and I was needing a place to kind of decompress, right? And I couldn't do it at work. I wasn't able to do it at home. I was golfing, but that really wasn't helping. But when I go in the gym and I could put in my headphones and, for an hour, just disappear in prayer and the word, and I'd find myself praying over random people in the gym, and I still do it now at Colosseum, but it just kind of, you walk out of that space and you go into your day and you're really more prepared mentally.
Yeah.
And I know guys that'll go in there and listen to, podcasts about being a better person and ways they can be more organized and things. And when your body and your mind are working together for one goal, and that's to kind of level yourself out and give you some sort of peace, it's amazing how that connection reverberates through the whole soul.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very, in my opinion, it's a very essential thing to have in your life. And like I said earlier, it doesn't require you to be in there, 2-3 hours and lifting all this crazy weight and having to be on these really wild diets. You can just eat normal, just eat healthy, and just go in there and get some exercise in, or whether you like to walk around the block or do whatever in your garage. Not everybody's a gym person, but for those of us who are gym people, it's a beautiful thing when you find a community of people that are like-minded like you, that aren't competing. Nobody in there in our gym's competing with each other.
No.
We all know John and Alicia are way sexier than we are, so we just we give up to them, But it really is. It's pretty incredible. What I want to kind of dive into a little bit are two things. Number one, starting a business, which I can relate to, and then COVID showing up.
Yeah.
How that kind of impacted you mentally and physically, number one. And then number two, the anxiety piece of it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that because it did for me,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I'm sure it did for you as well.
Oh, yeah.
How that crept up into your life, and then how you navigated through that to be able to kind of process that. Because I don't, number one, I think there's a lot of us out there that won't admit that we have anxiety.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you do,
Yeah.
right? I was one of those guys.
Yeah.
And number two, because we don't want to admit we have it, we're not prepared how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that can be a huge cancer to your life,
Yeah.
right? If you don't process it and learn how to navigate through it. So I want you to kind of have that space to kind of talk about that.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, me and my husband kind of had this idea. We always wanted to open up a gym for years when we first met. And, you know, God gave us the ability to do so with loans and everything. And we were on pace, we were on track. And we actually started in like this tiny little room where I was running bootcamp classes. And I was fitting about 20 to 30 people in that. And it was just, when you think about the hard times, when you're in it, you hate it. But when I look back on those times, those are probably one of the best memories I've ever made. And so we started there, and then we started the build out phase of our gym. And that's when COVID hit, like right when the build out was done. And, you know, me and my husband, because we didn't know at that time, everyone was so brand new to the pandemic and following the rules and what you can and can't do.
Right.
And we abided by the rules for, you know, I would say the first, like 5-6 months. And then just more and more started getting stacked on. And, you know, we looked at each other and we're like, how are we going to profit? How are we going to stay afloat? You know, we put all this money into this gym and we don't want to shut it down. So, you know, we kind of became sort of like that speakeasy gym, I guess you can say, where we put a code in the back so you guys were able to come through, which you come through every day still. You know, John's like, Josh comes through the back all the time. Members want a back code too. And I'm like, Josh is different. Just, you know, whatever. So we know our OG members because they come through the back.
Right.
Yeah, those are the members that have been with us from the very beginning. And I'm so grateful for you guys. But anyways, so we became this kind of like underground gym, I guess you can say. And we had a lot of, you know, police come in, military. We became that sort of safe haven. People just wanted to resume their regular day lives.
Yeah.
And training was a part of that. And it really opened my eyes as to like, wow, like people really, really need this more than a shot or more than, you know, going to the doctors. Like we need that for our soul, like our mental health.
I mean, a lot of the training stuff sold out like everywhere.
Yeah,
during
and that
time.
was the other thing. They hiked prices up, man. Like when people were like, hey, is this outrageous for these pair of dumbbells? I'm like, if you're buying a pair of dumbbells that are 10 pounds and they're saying it's $75 to $100, like, yeah, no. So we got through that. We stayed open. We fought, you know, all the letters that were put on our doors. Like I'm sure you got at your business as well. And we went to court and they basically put a restraining order on our business and saying that if we go against that, then they'll board up the doors and make it so we can't come in. We fought it. We continued our business. We put up construction paper, so we can just say, oh, we're still building out, right? So people were still coming in. We figured out no one could prove anything unless they were actually inside the gym. No one was getting inside that gym unless we personally knew you. So we stayed open, and then everything lifted, and things got a little bit better. But like you were saying, Josh, the anxiety was just so crippling. And you can go every day by saying, I'm fine. And then out of nowhere, you could be just sitting on your bed and it's like, you just can't breathe out of nowhere. And then your heart starts racing and you go, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? And I haven't dealt with panic attacks since I was probably, 16 or 17. And when this started happening, I go, man, I do not have the tools anymore. And it became so crippling that even going to the gym was hard for me to do. And, my husband's looking at me because when someone's having a panic attack and people don't know what it is, they're looking at you like you're crazy, like you're fine, you're breathing, like just I hate that term, just breathe. And it's like, well, I can't. So I would try that, but I can't. So finding ways in order to deal with the anxiety was something I had to do again. And there came a time where training was not taking care of it.
Yeah.
Training was not taking care of it. And no matter how many friends I went to, it was not helping. And the one thing that did, and I swear to God, there was a moment where you and I had a conversation in my office, and you spoke about your anxiety, and you spoke about how you would listen to worship music during your training and workouts. And I grew up Christian, and there's times where you are a great Christian, but then there's times where you're human and you fall off.
Right.
And you resort to yourself and you rely on yourself more. And when I had that conversation with you, I kid you not, I had to literally fall on my knees and get back into that and just ask for, number one, I laid it all at God's feet and I said, here, like, it's not mine. I don't want it. Like, I need help. Mm-hmm. And I went back to the Word. We went back to church, and I started to listen to worship music during training as well, and praying too. It just always came back to God. God always had my back no matter what. It's just I had to remember that. And what's funny is because I have my playlist going when I am training, and when a worship song would come on, I would skip through it. So now when a worship song comes on, I feel like this is God's way of talking to me again. So I'm just going to
volume up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's kind of like hitting me on the head. Like, hey.
Yeah.
Let her play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy how sometimes like the reminders are there. And like you said, before you used to skip it.
Yeah.
And now you use it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
To pump you up.
Exactly. And you do get pumped up from it. So
yeah.
I don't care what anybody says, but
I think a lot of people, and we've discussed this in a lot of the episodes, that during the pandemic, what a lot of businesses went through it, especially I think you went through it. You were a new business too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know I was always moving when before the pandemic. So slowing down, it's kind of like shit. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Because I was so used to. A lot of us were so used to like.
Go.
Working, what's next? But looking back to like certain situations and having conversations with people who went through either depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
I question myself, like, was I going through that? Did I have that? But I mean, I could understand when you said how people would tell you just breathe, and you hated that.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrible. I like if anyone's ever struggling with anxiety and they tell you to breathe, like, no offense, don't say that, because it's just, that's the first thing we try and it doesn't work.
It's kind of like trying to breathe when you're 6 feet underwater.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you're in the middle of the ocean, a big wave comes and grabs you and throws you down and you get caught up in the swell underneath.
Yeah.
You don't want to try to take a big breath then, right? Because all you're going to do is just take in water.
Yeah.
You got to get to the surface to actually get air.
It's a good analogy right there. It's very true.
And I think for those of us that do struggle with anxiety and are open about it, finding the surface is actually key, right? Because you get to the surface of the issue. You get to a place where the reason you're struggling with certain things is because there are these domino effects that are going on in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And you can try to tell yourself, and I'm a very positive thinking person. I'm always like, my wife used to hate it because I'd always just be like, everything's going to be all right. Well, it's not just because I was kumbaya, it's just I had faith, right? Mm-hmm. And I had faith that if I'm submitting myself to the will of the Father, then whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing will occur, right? And if I'm supposed to, that's kind of where this podcast came from. I learned that adversity was going to hit. It's not like you can avoid it.
Yeah.
And for so long as a believer, I had this false impression that because I had faith in Christ, nothing was going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And I had such a good life in Texas where it was just a good run. And you come here and you're like, you hit this wall of the pandemic right as you open a business. And it's like, kind of like you said, I hadn't dealt with this kind of stress or anxiety really in 12, 15 years.
Yeah.
Because I had such a good run at my previous job and my previous career, my previous living experience and environment and all that. So all this flaring back up for me was kind of this space of like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
Whoa, and how do I deal with this? Going to their gym one morning, I end up in a parking lot on the side of the street calling my pastor that fired me in Orlando.
Wow.
Just bawling. I mean, weeping uncontrollably in my car. Because it felt like everything underneath me was just falling out. Yeah. And there's nothing I could seem to do to get the floor back underneath me in my mind. And the same thing, I would go to the gym, I wouldn't be as fired. There was no motivation. Yeah. I didn't care. You know, I got to a place where I didn't care if I lost everything. Yeah. And that was a very unhealthy way of thinking, place to be mentally.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing she did. You know, that's how I was able to give her the advice I gave her was I called a guy that would pray with me. Yeah. Even though he fired me, right?
Right.
I knew that was someone that was a lifelong prayer warrior, that was a friend in my life, that genuinely loved me and would take the time out of his day to authentically pray over me, not a generic prayer, but really get into my soul and pray.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I love that you said that, because for me, that's been what's helped me deal with anxiety is praying and having that place of, you know what, it may all hit the fan, but you're a big umbrella, God, and you're going to cover me. And it may not be pleasant, and it may not be cool, but I'm going to get through it. And I'm going to get to the other side because of you, not because of me. Because if it was up to me, I'd probably just 100%. Fall apart.
And I'm glad that you spoke on that, because there was a moment, I was the same way as you, where I'm like, you know, everything's going to be fine. It turns out great. Like it always ends fine. And there was a moment where, you know, when our landlord basically said, because we were deferring some of our rent because we weren't able to afford it. Mm-hmm. I don't know who was able to make all their rent payments during that time. But so basically she slammed us with like, I think it was $50,000, and we had 3 days to pay it. And this was near Christmas.
Wow.
This was near Christmas. And at that point, I remember looking at John, and I literally fell to my knees and I go, we're done. There's no way. I mean, we were exhausting all the resources we had and the people that we knew, and said, hey, like, you know, we'll pay you back. We'll make payments, like interest, like whatever you need. And just no. And 2 weeks before we got that letter, a guy named Mark walked into our business wanting help. And he became one of John's clients, because John helps the men and I stick to the women. Mm-hmm. And we created a great relationship with Mark, and him and Frida are just amazing. His girlfriend, his wife, pretty much are amazing people, and they own their own business as well. They own Skunk Masters, and so we connected. And 2 weeks pass, and we got that letter. And John goes, you know what? He's like, I'm going to ask Mark to see if he would help us. And I go, there's no way. You know, not saying that he's not a good guy or that he wouldn't help us. It's just when you're asking somebody for $50,000 and you barely know that person, like, come on. So, you know, he did a weigh-in with John, and when we do that with our clients, where we do biweekly weigh-ins where they come in and we have them on this machine, and it tells us how much fat they lost, how much muscle they're growing or retaining. So he had a weigh-in. And at this point, I'm thinking we lost everything. There's going to be no Christmas for the kids. We're done. And I remember being in bed, and John calls me, and he goes, Alicia? And I go, yeah. And he's like, we're going to be okay. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, Mark's going to give us the money. And he's like, we don't have to pay anything back. He said,
wow.
We're not going to lose the gym. We were so close to losing the gym. And him and Frida gave us that money. And then we realized, like, hey, like, we want to be partners with these people because they're great people. And he became a partner. They became partners. So
man, you just gave me the chills right now.
It is. I mean, I was thinking in my head as a parent, like, you know, I can't give presents for my kids, like, and I know that's so minuscule, but it's just, you know, as a parent, you want to provide those.
Well,
things.
that's the first thing you think about when
the
you
kids,
get,
they're going to be.
You think
what
of
are
your
they going to miss out
family,
on?
yeah.
So, but I had one of those moments where I was like, it's done. Like, there's nothing else we can do from here. And it's, my dad always told me this story of a priest on top of a roof, and there's a flood, and like you were saying, everything's supposed to pan out great, right? As long as I believe in the Lord, and you know, he's expecting God to take him up to heaven, and he's expecting some sort of like safety net or something miraculous magic to happen. And each person on a boat comes by and asks the priest, hey, like, let me take you to safety. And the priest goes, no, my Lord will provide for me. Second guy comes on a boat. Hey, like, let me take you to safety. No, that's okay. My Lord will take care of me. Third guy comes, same thing. Well, he dies and he gets up to heaven. He goes, I don't understand. Like, I did everything you wanted me to do. I abided by all your rules. Like, why did I die? And he looks at him, he goes, well, I sent you 3 people.
Right.
And so it's like one of those moments where it's like, you won't know what you have unless you ask. So, I'm just it goes back to being grateful and looking for those people in your life that they're monumental and just, it's just there. Everything happens for a reason. So. Absolutely.
And it's very important that, we talk a lot about community, and the importance of community. And, there's a lot of people that are missing out on the opportunity to find that breath, to find the way to the surface, because they kick away their community because a lot of people don't feel like they need help.
Right.
And that's a pride thing.
Yeah.
And so when we have so much pride that we don't realize that we need help and we need each other, then we miss out, And so when things like the anxiety or the depression or all the other things that can creep up and cripple you, literally cripple you, start showing up, you don't know how to navigate through it because you don't have a source to plug into. And I think it's a very important role for us as we're trying to spread this message of adversity and how not to let it cripple you and bring you down, that you have to find people that are like-minded like you. And one of the things to think about, if you're looking at your community of people and you don't like the people you're hanging out with, then maybe you should take a look in the mirror because you may look like them as well.
Yep.
Yeah, 100% on that. Yeah.
And I've always noticed that, like, your peer group is a great reflection of who you are. Mm-hmm. And if you're hanging out with a bunch of people that aren't great reflections, then it's time to look at yourself, figure out what changes you need to make, and then maybe separate from that peer group and kind of integrate yourself into some other peer groups that are going to be supportive.
And that can be scary too.
Oh yeah.
That can be scary when you're putting yourself out there and kicking out people in your life that are meant to be there. And that's hard. That's really hard. So I know a lot about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's family and you don't want to separate yourself because it's family.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, what I tell some friends is, no matter what, they're going to be your family, bro. Like, if you're trying to grow, then you got to surround yourself with the right people, because sometimes, you're and I'm looking back to when I was growing up. I'm still good friends with a lot of the guys I grew up with, but I knew there was a point where I was like you guys, like, like, what do I have to do, God, to get change, to change my life? And pretty much it's like separating from your group of friends if you want to grow. And that was hard because that's all I knew.
Yeah.
And then once you surround yourself with the right people and you're learning new things.
Yeah.
I always tell myself, like if I'm the smartest one in the crew, like I got to get new friends just because I feel like I always have to learn. Yeah. So
that's good.
That's
so
funny,
so I always look at situations where if someone's looking at me as the successful one in the group and I'm still chasing success, it's more like, man, they think that I'm doing it like when I'm really like struggling or going through something.
Yeah.
So that's why I love audiobooks. I read my Bible every morning.
Yeah.
And a lot when I share that with people, like the first reaction I get, especially from my close friends, are like, "You don't read the Bible." But I do.
Yeah.
And when wifey's there, she's like, yeah, he prays every morning and
she's your verification.
Yeah. So she kind of puts a stamp on it because they don't believe me.
Yeah.
But that's me doing my part in what I'm chasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think there comes a time as you get older, because, early in your early 20s, I mean, I'm just like, it's funny that you brought up audiobooks and stuff like that, because I'm like, man, I'm never gonna be one of those people that listen to self-help and blah 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 in the car. That's so boring. And now it's like, that's all I listen to.
That's what I do too.
So yeah, it's you literally turn into something that Like I remember my parents saying, I'm never going to be like you guys. And man, damn, like I'm more conservative than they ever were. And you know, it's just crazy. So yeah, but I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, that's definitely not a bad thing. You know, when you get older, I think there's a maturation process that you almost appreciate, you know, that I think about like back in the day, same thing. I'd listen to sports talk radio and I'd be bored within 20 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And I'd turn on and some music, Nirvana or whatever it was back then.
Oh, that's a good band though, man.
Yeah. I mean, I listened to some good stuff back in the day.
Yeah, 90s was where it was at, honestly.
It was good tunes back then.
Yeah.
And now that I'm in my 40s and I've got a kid, and I hardly ever listen to the radio.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I'll turn it on because I like country music, and I think every country music song out right now is about a truck. You know, every one. And so it's like you kind of hear the same song over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's just go back to the self-help or the sports talk radio or my Bible app, one of the two, right? Like, let's just do something more positive.
Yeah. I was also someone that I would always I'm one of those people that I like to text instead of calling, and I made it a thing this year. Like, okay, don't press ignore. Pick up the damn phone, because like someone might really need you, or someone might really need your advice, or you might listen to something that you needed to hear. And so it's just funny that you say that, because I stopped listening to music that honestly doesn't really serve you in any sort of way sometimes, and started to actually talk more and listen and hear friends and what they have to say, or my parents that I haven't spoken to in like 2 weeks, and they're like, where are you? Are you dead? And you're like, no, I'm fine. Like, I've just been busy. Sorry. So it's just times where I can catch up on things that I've been avoiding, I guess you can say.
You know, another thing I want to kind of get into before we shut down is you took a huge leap of faith going into the competition realm of things, right? A lot of people don't realize that. Just because you're a trainer at a gym doesn't mean you're on a stage competing.
Right.
In fact, probably 85% of the trainers on this planet have never competed.
Yeah.
And you decided to take that next step kind of deal. And then after the first show, I know there was some even thoughts of maybe I am or I'm not going to do this again. And you decided to kind of keep going.
Yeah.
So what was it, number one, that made you want to go from the training piece to the competitive piece?
Yeah.
And then after that first show, navigate us through kind of the thought process that you went through to decide this is something I want to keep doing moving forward.
Yeah. So, competition was something I always wanted to do when I was younger, when I first got into training and exercising. And it was kind of more of a superficial reason why I wanted to do it when I was younger. And I'm so glad I did not do it when I was younger, because it's easy just to throw on a bikini and learn how to pose and, you know, do your thing. I'm so glad I waited until I was in my 30s to step on stage, because number one, I was able to build the muscle necessary in order to look like I belong on there. Number two, I had such a better state of mind and why I'm doing it, I guess you can say. Not that I think I'm anything great or I think I'm anything substantial, but I knew there were certain people that looked up to me and admired what I was doing. And it's kind of like, that's kind of kept fueling my passion to do it. Because, man, like I would have stopped a long time ago. It's not fun dieting down. And coming from someone who had an eating disorder, like it's not fun having your food taken away. Like I'm a huge foodie now. Like I love food. Food is everything for me. Like I can out eat my husband any day. So,
he's a big boy.
He is a big boy.
You'll meet him next week.
Yeah, but and he'll say I'm lying, but just I can down a 32-pound porter, like if not 32 ounce, whatever.
Man, that's a
I'll
big
be looking
old
at
steak.
him and I'll be like, "Are you done with that?" Like I'll take it. But
It's like
anyways,
a small baby.
So, you know, after my first show was with a different federation, and I did not bring the package I wanted to bring. We spent way too much money in that. It was definitely a lesson learned. And, you know, after that, I took about a year and then switched federations into the MPC. And it was way more rigorous training, strict on the food. And that's where my heart lies. And they came out with a different division called the wellness division. And that was more so of the legs and the booty and the quads. And, you know, a lot of women, they try to fit themselves into a category that they don't necessarily belong in. So when wellness came out for us girls that, you know, grow bigger on our trunks, it was perfect. So went up there. It's kind of funny when I talk about this. I swept my first show at the MPC. I took every single division. I took the overall, and that night it should have been the greatest moment of my life, right? And that night is when I had one of my biggest panic attacks.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know why. And I looked at John and I go, I can't breathe right now. And he's like, you're fine, just breathe. And I'm like, no, something's wrong. And that's where I had to go back and get into the word. And I think this sport can be so selfish and superficial that I think God wanted to remind me that, hey, like, you're here because of me. Mm-hmm. Just remember that. And I was able to calm myself down and breathe through it. But again, it was a good reminder. And then, you know, the second show was kind of more so to see just where I would end up. So now just the plan is just to take more time and grow and build. And I'm enjoying it because that means more food. And that means more programming that I get to choose. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So when do you think you'll do your next show?
I think we're probably looking at September. We were looking at June, but I go, this is too soon to put on that amount of muscle that was needed. It's just too soon. And I wanted more time. I want to enjoy those times going out with friends and, you know, having a couple drinks here and there and acting normal. And because when you're dieting down for a show, like you're a ghost to everyone. You don't exist. Nothing matters. All you're thinking about is your next meal. You are not pleasant to be around. You're not fun. So you kind of hide in the shadows until you come out from him and you're yourself again.
And
so.
Kind of tell everybody, because I don't think people really realize how long dieting down takes.
It takes, I mean, it depends. Like, so I did like a 12-week prep.
12
There's
weeks.
There's 16 weeks and there's 12 weeks. And I mean, if you screw up on just one time, like I think I remember I had, what did I do? Oh my gosh, so many things.
In and out.
Because we're human. We do cheat. We do cheat. Any competitor that says, oh, I never cheat on my diet, I'm sorry, but you're lying. Whether or not you had a couple almonds here and there, or you had a protein bar, or you had a bite of ice cream. So I remember, like, I think I had a couple bites of ice cream, and it shows when you're really lean and you're dialed in. Any little thing matters. And I remember my coach looking at me from the pictures and he goes, what did you have? And I go, I'm sorry?
Just from pictures?
Just from pictures.
Wow.
And he goes, yeah, you know, you're holding a little bit more fat underneath your glute. What happened from last week? And I'm like, mother? And I'm like, well, and I told him and he goes, okay, don't do that. And I go, okay, yeah. So yeah, it takes it every little thing matters.
Baskin Robbins showed up. Couldn't help it.
Yeah, you can
He
say
kicked my
that.
ass.
Man, that's discipline right there for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's difficult. I mean, anybody and nobody can really relate to that. Like taking and monitoring every single piece of food and liquid.
Yeah.
It's not just food, it's food and liquid.
Yeah.
That goes in your body for 12 to 16 weeks you're talking 3-4 months of your life. You're just, you can't really screw up.
Yeah.
Like she said, I mean, you have a scoop of ice cream, and it's same for the guys. You know, my buddies that would compete, you know, Chance's dad, Cooney, he was a professional bodybuilder when we were kids,
Chance,
right? Yeah, Chance is great. And I remember when his dad would go on these, same thing, right? He'd stopped competing whenever I was working for him, but he still had that mindset, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like even though he wasn't going to be on a stage, he wanted to prove to himself that he could still do it. So he'd go on these crazy diets, and I'm like, all the food prep that goes into it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're cooking all your meals on Sunday for the next week, and they're all stacked and they're dated and they're itemized, meal 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
You know, it's
It's
nuts.
annoying.
It's a lot.
It's
I will
annoying.
never do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a spouse that's supportive and understands it, it helps a lot. I do not recommend dieting, though, together. That is just hell in a handbasket.
Well, thank God for me. We got our persistence culture Mel Eats preps.
There you
And
go.
They hooked me
There
up.
you
I'll
go.
pay for it.
There you go.
That's great.
So I don't have to prep it on Sundays.
So
man.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah, but for a young lady or gentleman that's listening, that's going through the same thing that you went when you were young,
Yeah.
what would you tell that person?
Oh gosh, I would say kind of like going back to what you were saying, surround yourself with the right people. And if you're not a believer, you know, I'm not here to bash anyone over and try to like smack God in your face, because it took me a while. I was raised in a Christian household, and I was someone that rebelled and did a lot of bad things, and it took me to come back to Him. So I'd say open up your Bible and read Psalms if you're ever having a really hard time, and just find people that you really, really trust, and that will give you good sound advice, not things that you want to hear, but things that you need to hear. Find things that that alleviate you from any sort of stressors, whether that be music or training or hiking or drawing or whatever it is. But yeah, just life can get tough. Life can get really, really tough. And I've learned finding people that understand you and will listen to you has really helped a lot.
And it's all right to ask for help too. I know when I was growing up, I thought I could fix myself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
sometimes even just having a convo with someone, it's amazing how much you learn from that conversation when someone else is telling you like, "Yo, you need to do this."
Yeah.
And I know Josh has shared his different crews that he has, the Wolf Pack, and who's the other one? There's a couple of
all my boys from Tyler and all that. Yeah,
yeah. So when you share those stories, I can relate to certain people I call to for just to have the combo.
Yeah.
I was never a believer in like, therapy or counseling or none of that. And during the pandemic, my sister-in-law does it, and she's all like, "Have you ever done breathing techniques?" And I was like, "Oh God, what's that?" Believe it or not, that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And that's something that I never like really wanted to try, never believed in, but I won't tell her, but it did help me a lot. Yeah.
I think the vulnerability piece of it, as we kind of close this one out, you got to have, like you were talking about, you got to have people that you can be vulnerable with.
Yeah. 100%.
Because if you've got someone in your life that you can just be vulnerable with, right? An open book, and they have sound wisdom behind them, that is worth more than any asset you could ever purchase with money.
100%, yeah.
Because it'll just give you such sound direction, and it'll give you such a calming peace after opening up to them and them looking at you and kind of giving you the tools of how to navigate through that.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, another great episode. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Now, can people find you guys on Instagram, or you guys have a website?
Yeah. And thank you again so much for having me. This was so much fun. I loved it. Good therapy session, right?
I told you it was going to be
This is a
good.
therapy session. Yeah, I don't have to go to therapy this week at all. So, yeah. So mine's kind of long. It's at Colosseum _ Alicia Marie, and Colosseum is spelled COLOSSEUM _ Alicia Marie. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And we'll be back next week with another episode, Adversity Podcast, Real People, Real Stories. Thank you guys so much.
Peace.